Hi, my name is Nathan Howe, and I wanted to give you an overview of how Zscaler Private Access brokers connections for your users to your applications only after the user is allowed to see that application. However, the way in which Zscaler does that, there are fundamental changes to the way in which applications would normally be accessed. Thus, understanding the difference and how Zscaler Private Access brokers these connections for your users will help you when supporting them. Zscaler Private Access provides you with the ability to assess the functionality of your connections through our diagnostics. To access that, click on the Diagnostics button on the left-hand side. Now that you're here, you can see the way in which we provide information around the connectivity. But it's important to understand how all these functions work. Diagnostics is actually broken down into two main segments. The past events, showing events that have occurred in the last few minutes and beyond, and real-time events, showing events as they are actually being generated. There actually is three additional functionalities to address, which is the different types of modes. There are diagnostics collected in terms of user accessing applications, which is what we're currently viewing now. We also have the ability to see the application diagnostics. And finally, we have the connector status, which shows the information about the connectors as they're actively functioning. The idea of all these logs is to provide you with the ability to see how Zscaler Private Access is brokering the connections from your users to your applications. So going back to the user space and expanding on the log file here, you'll see in this log or diagnostic log the end-to-end statement of how Zscaler Private Access established and created connectivity for your user to your application. A small pro tip for those of you interested, clicking on the gray button here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen will actually expand and collapse all of the fields in view. Let's go through what a log in the diagnostics actually contains. Essentially, you need to think of it in three main areas. First is the timestamps and status of the connection. You can see here start, stop. You can also see the duration as well as total bytes transferred for that application session. Now, traditionally with other remote access solutions, you would see that user logged in, transferred 10 gigabytes of data, and logged out. Here we can see at what application, what was transferred, bytes sent, and responded. The next up is the policy, and there actually are two policies to keep in mind. One is the access policy, and one is a timeout policy. And we'll address the timeout policy another time. We've discussed access policy already. So we know that this rule has been set up to allow, in this case, I'm sending a DNS traffic down my tunnel. It's part of a test I'm playing with. You'll see who the user is. You'll see the IP address of where the user is coming from. This, in this case, is the egress location of the IP address. So perhaps the internet link from the coffee shop, or in this case, this seems to be from my phone going out via Deutsche Telekom network. Therefore, you'll see the location of that IP address, and you'll see the type of client that's leveraging that connectivity. Next, we see the Zscaler infrastructure. So here, we see that we have a Zen or broker that is connecting the user. You'll see the location of that, and you'll see the processing time. This is essentially the time it took Zscaler to connect the user to the application. Now we move into your infrastructure. This is where you see the connector. So this is the connector piece that you have running inside your ecosystem. In this case, it's a UDP connectivity. You'll see that I have a location of the connector ID, and you'll see the connector to app round trip time. This value essentially is the time from the connector to the application and back. You'll then see here the name of the application or the connector group, and again an ID. You'll note there's lots of IDs throughout here, intentionally built to allow you as an administrator to be able to quickly and easily correlate against certain functions within the UI, but also when you stream your logs. Finally, you'll see the application segment, the type of segment name, the actual connectivity, the type of port requested, and again, an application ID. An additional pro tip, within the policy diagnostics, you can see multiple linked pieces of information. So here you'll see the connector, there is the policy name both for access policy and for timeout. You'll also see the connector group information here. This is linked to the actual configuration. So if I click on the connector here, I'll get sent to the connector configuration, and I can make changes on the fly if need be. In addition to showing the successful access control, access logs, which are defined here under the top right-hand corner, we also have the ability of seeing perhaps error messages that are associated with the connectivity, also policy blocks. An error message is when something failed as part of the connectivity. For example, the rules here showing that a TLS session was not present. A policy block is when you actually have a policy in place that's not allowing access to somebody. Now you can see here I have nothing in the last 24 hours, but if I extend that time range out to 14 days, I guarantee there'll be something hidden in my logs. We'll wait for that to load, and here we see it. So you'll see here that my application with the user is not allowed access because my user is not configured for that application access. There are multiple different types of error messages you might see, and these are summarized in the dashboard, and you can dive into them. There's a good example. Here's another one here that the timeout policy blocked that access. Finally, you have the successful information, which we've already reviewed, but you can click on that and then see all of the successful versus all of the failed. In summary is the total here. This gives you an overview of how to understand and manage the logs that you'll be collecting in terms of your users accessing applications. Of course, this all can be represented here in our diagnostics. We can also stream these logs to the log streaming service. In addition, the information you see there is also represented here in the dashboard by applications access, Zscaler applications, as well as the errors you see here.